The Second Battle of Porto, also known as the Battle of the Douro, was a battle in which General Arthur Wellesley's Anglo-Portuguese army defeated Marshal Nicolas Soult's French troops on 12 May 1809 and took back the city of Porto. After taking command of the British troops in Portugal on the 22nd of April, Wellesley immediately advanced on Porto and made a surprise crossing of the Douro River, approaching Porto where its defences were weak. Soult's late attempts to muster a defence were in vain. The French quickly abandoned the city in a disorderly retreat. This battle ended the Second French invasion of Portugal. Soult soon found his retreat route to the east blocked and was forced to destroy his guns and burn his baggage train. Wellesley pursued the French army, but Soult's army escaped annihilation by fleeing through the mountains. Background: French occupation in the First Battle of Porto. The French under General Soult defeated the Portuguese under Generals Lima Barreto and Paredes outside the city of Porto. After winning the battle, Soult stormed the city. In addition to 8,000 military casualties, large numbers of civilians died. While Soult was in Porto, a detached force operated to the east under the leadership of Major General Louis Loison. Initially, this force included General of Division Henry de Labor's Infantry Division and Lorges Cavalry Division. A Portuguese force under Major General Francisco Silveira captured the French garrison of Chaves and blocked Soult's communications with Spain by blockading the area around Amarante. From the 18th of April to the 3rd of May, the Portuguese held Loison on the west bank of the Tamega River. On the latter day, French engineers succeeded in disarming the explosives-rigged bridge so that de Labor's infantry could cross it. By May, the French marshal feared he was outnumbered by the English. Soult stayed up late on the 11th of May drawing up his plans for retreat. General of Division Julian Augustin Joseph Mermet's division had already been sent off with the baggage and the artillery park. Soult retained a total of 10,000 infantry and 1,200 cavalry. De Labor's division included 3 battalions each of the 17th Light, 70th Line, and 86th Line infantry regiments. General of Division Pierre-Hugues Victoire Merle's division was composed of 4 battalions each of the 2nd and 4th Light Infantry regiments, and 3 battalions of the 36th Line Infantry Regiment. General of Division Jean-Baptiste Marie Franceschi Delon's cavalry was made up of the 1st Hussar Regiment, 8th Dragoon Regiment, and the 22nd and Hanoverian Chasseurs à Cheval regiments. Anglo-Portuguese advance. After coming up from Lisbon, the Anglo-Portuguese fought a skirmish with the French at the Battle of Grijó on the 11th of May. According to one historian, 18,400 men at Wellesley's command were organized thus: Lieutenant General Payne's Cavalry Division, 1st Cavalry Brigade, 16th LD, 20th LD and 3rd King's German Legion LD. LG Edward Paget's Division, 1st KGL Brigade Langworth, 1st and 2nd KGL Line, 3rd KGL Brigade, 6th Brigade. LG John Cope Sherbrooke's Division, 2nd Guards Brigade, 4th Brigade, 5th Brigade. MG Rowland Hill's Division, 1st Brigade, 7th Brigade. There were 4 6-gun artillery batteries under Colonel Edward Howarth. 1 had 9-pounders, 2 had 6-pounders and 1 had 3-pounders. Historian Michael Glover stated that the order of battle was somewhat different. Glover lists the following organization: 1st Guards Brigade, B.G. Henry F. Campbell, 2,292. 2nd Brigade, B.G. Alexander Campbell, 1,206. 3rd Brigade, B.G. John Sontag, 1,307. 4th Brigade, M.G. Rowland Hill, 2007. 5th Brigade, B.G. Allen Cameron, 1,316. 6th Brigade, B.G. Richard Stewart, 1,290. 7th Brigade, M.G. John Murray, 8th Baronet, 2,913. Cavalry, M.G. Stapleton Cotton, 1,463. Artillery, Colonel Edward Howarth, 24 guns. Farther to the east, William Carr Beresford led MG Christopher Tilson's British 3rd Brigade and 5,000 Portuguese to link up with Silveira's force. MG Alex Randall Mackenzie's British 2nd Brigade and a large Portuguese force operated on the line of the Tagus River. Action. On the morning of the 12th of May, Colonel John Waters was reconnoitering the river east of Porto. He was approached by a Portuguese barber who led him to a point on the bank hidden by brush where there was a skiff, a prior of the convent and 3 or 4 peasants. Partly at Waters' entreaties and partly at the urging of the prior, the peasants got into the skiff with the British officer and crossed the 500-yard-wide river, bringing back 4 unguarded wine barges from the opposite bank. When informed of this opportunity, Wellesley told them to let the men across. Immediately, a company of the 3rd Foot crossed the river and occupied a walled seminary overlooking the landing site. By the time the French realized that Wellesley's forces were on the north bank, the entire battalion of the Buffs of Hills Brigade had already been sent into the seminary. Soult, who was asleep at the time, remained unaware of these developments. General of Brigade Maximilian Foy, who was the first to see the British crossing, requisitioned 3 battalions of the 17th Light Infantry and led an attack on the seminary around 11:30 a.m. Foy was wounded and his soldiers beaten back with heavy losses. Reinforced later in the day by 3 more battalions, the French attacked again. By this time, however, 3 more battalions had occupied the seminary and surrounding buildings, and the French were defeated once again. Soult withdrew the troops guarding the Porto boats in order to reinforce Foy. As soon as the French left the riverside, the people of Porto immediately set out in anything that would float, and ferried more British troops over. 4 British battalions crossed immediately and attacked the French from the rear. The French, already planning a leisurely evacuation of the city, instead fled precipitously northeastward, in order to cut off the French retreat. MG John Murray's 2,900-man brigade with the 14th Light Dragoons had been sent across the Douro at a ferry 5 miles to the east of Porto. Murray stood aside and failed to block the French escape route, though there was a skirmish. The 14th, however, sped after the retreating French. They charged and succeeded in cutting off about 300 Frenchmen, securing many of them as prisoners. Out of 110 horsemen, 35 were killed in this action. Aftermath. The British lost 125 men. In the battle for the seminary, Wellesley's second-in-command, Maj. Gen. Edward Paget, had his arm shattered by a French bullet and it had to be amputated. In addition to 1,800 captured, the French suffered 600 casualties, which included Foy, who was wounded. Soult's retreat due to Murray's error of judgment and the bulk of Wellesley's army being on the south side of the Douro. The French escaped on the 12th of May. However, Loison failed to clear Silveira's force away from Soult's planned path of retreat to the northeast. So Soult was compelled to abandon all his equipment and take footpaths over the hills to the north. Soult's and Loison's forces met at Guimarães, but Wellesley's army marched north. The British reached Braga before the French, forcing Soult to retreat to the northeast again. Meanwhile, Beresford and Silveira were maneuvering to block Soult's escape route in that direction. After escaping from several tight spots, Soult slipped away over the mountains to Orense in Spain. During the retreat, Soult's corps lost 4,500 men, its military chest and all 58 guns and baggage. In fiction, the Battle of Porto is depicted by Bernard Cornwell in Sharp's Havoc, Simon Scarrow in Fire and Sword, Alan Mallinson in An Act of Courage, and by Ian Gale in Keane's Company.